Let's take a trip back to the late 90s and the early 2000s. Three of the biggest trading card games were at the peak of their popularity at this time, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, the usual suspects. And as we all know, when something gets popular, there's bound to be either imitators or just newcomers stepping up to the plate. And that's where Duel Masters comes in. Duel Masters is the most underrated trading card game, and it just fills me with shame knowing that it wasn't as successful here in America as its contemporaries. In this review, I'll be talking about the 2004 video game released for the PlayStation 2, Duel Masters Cobalt. However, I feel like in order for you to get a better understanding of Duel Masters, some context should be given on what the game is. Let's get started.
What's Duel Master?
Duel Master?
It's called Duel Master. Strange name for a bubblegum card.
So what is Duel Masters? Duel Masters is a media franchise that saw mild success here in America. The card game was released in Japan in May of 2002 and later released in America in March of 2004 by Wizards of the Coast, the same guys behind Magic the Gathering. Duel Masters also had an anime that aired on the Toonami block of Cartoon Network all the way from 2004 to 2006. So how's the card game played? It plays similarly to Magic the Gathering. The main objective is to destroy all 5 of your opponent's shields and then deal one final blow to them to end the game. You also spend mana points to summon creatures and cast spells. Oh geez, I keep forgetting the number of rules and features that Duel Masters borrowed from Magic. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Cards are split into 5 classes, or civilizations as the game calls it. Fire, water, nature, light, and darkness. Each civilization has different gameplay characteristics that change the way the cards and spells are used. I'll go a bit more in detail about the gameplay later. With that out of the way, let's talk about Duel Masters Cobalt on the PlayStation 2. Duel Masters Cobalt follows the story of a professional duelist named Knight, who is tasked with stopping 5 legendary creatures from being released into the real world after the game's villain, Widow, badly screws up the ritual needed to summon them.
What?
Too soon. Too soon. You fool. Only the winner of the sacred tournament is gifted with control over these portals. You've destabilized the temple.
However, Knight knows that this task is something that can't be done alone, so he enlists the help of 5 duelists to assist him in retrieving the creatures and thwarting the Widow's plans. The duelists that Knight has selected are given the task of gaining enough rank and reputation to enter the 5 Colors tournament, a tourney that allows only the best of the best duelists. If these 5 can enter the tournament, they'll all be able to put an end to the Widow scheme once and for all. And I think now's a good time to go over each of the 5 duelists. Let's take a look at them. In the story mode of Duel Masters Cobalt, you play as 5 protagonists who follow their own separate path to reaching the rank of Kaijudo in order to enter the 5 Colors tournament. Let's have a look at the 5 heroes of this story.
Joan, this has been a day for upsets.
It certainly has, Howard. This Cinderella story is about to come to a happy ending for this fiery duelist.
Let's start off with the youngest of the bunch, Rusty. Rusty is a fire duelist who can be a bit hot-headed and kind of naive. He's the younger brother of another duelist named Trey. I'm gonna be honest, it really sucks that the relationship dynamic between them is never explored. Like, all they do is just, they have regular conversations, yeah, but the most that you'll ever hear about their brotherhood is just them saying, oh hey, Trey or Rusty is my brother. And it's kind of weird because, these are 2 of the 5 duelists that are tasked with saving the world from these creatures from being released by this ritual. I gotta say though, Rusty's design does a really good job at reflecting his hot-blooded nature. From his blazing red hair to his leather jacket with flames at the tip of each sleeve, Rusty just oozes attitude. Up next is the water duelist, Rebecca. Rebecca is the kindest of the bunch. She's usually soft-spoken and very rarely gets mad at anyone else in the game. The one time she did go off on someone was when they kept calling her Becca. Now, one interesting thing to note about Rebecca is that her aunt is the main villain of the game. Her aunt's real name is Vivian, and she just uses Widow as a code name or whatever. And because of this, I was hoping for some kind of intense rivalry between the 2 because, they're related, but, it's just wasted potential. Nothing comes of it except for a few badly voiced arguments between them. Speaking of voice acting, I want to go on a tangent here and say that the voice acting in this game is awful. Knight and a couple of other characters are one of the few people with serviceable voice acting. The dialogue is cringy and the delivery, oh god. Just listen to this.
Oh my
Oh my gosh! Is that Knight?
Knight? Who's Knight?
Who's Knight? He's only one of the greatest duelists of all time.
Wow! Think we can get his autograph? Do you have any books on Duel Masters history? I've researched, and there are supposed to be important texts here, but I can't find them.
Yes, there are texts, but they are not available to the general public.
Who you fooling, Light Boy? This is a man's game, not some toy.
It's cliche to say in these kinds of reviews, but the voice acting just sounds like the dev team just went onto a college campus, spotted a few students, and just said, hey, trying to make some extra money? Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, Rebecca. So getting back on track, the dynamic, as I said earlier, between Rebecca and the Widow is just wasted potential. Although I do like Rebecca's design overall. Her spiky blue hair and her blue dress with waves on it looks pretty dope. For our third duelist, I bring you Trey. Representing the nature civilization is Trey, who is ironically more aggressive than his younger brother Rusty. Then again, he is 5 years older than him, but still. Trey's storyline is my favorite, honestly. It follows an underdog who struggles to compete against his adversaries and longtime rival, and yet still has that strong sense of will and determination in the face of losing. I don't know what it is, but I just have a huge love of plot lines about underdogs climbing their way back to the top. As for Trey's design though, it's really bland. From his light brown pants to his dark green shirt, the only two things that stand out about him to me are his Super Saiyan-like hair and the chain he wears on his pants. Duelist number 4 brings us the light duelist Luke. Luke is the calm yet cheery of the bunch. Luke's storyline is also my second favorite. During a high-stakes match in a random tournament, Luke is accused of using a banned card in his deck and is disqualified from the match completely. Because of this, his goal throughout is to regain the trust of his peers and other duelists, and to find out how to get back at the person who slipped that illegal card into his deck. I like Luke's design a lot. He's rocking this bright yellow hoodie with the icon for the light civilization on it, and he's wearing these jorts. I gotta say though, fashion in the 2000s was it was quite something. Funny enough, Luke will always be seen wearing his hood over his head even while he's indoors. But hey, gotta increase that cool factor somehow, am I right? Now let's talk about our final duelist, Flynn. Flynn, if it wasn't apparent enough from his appearance, plays using a darkness deck. If I could describe Flynn's personality, I'd say he's more laid back than the rest of the crew. Flynn's storyline sees him completing tasks for one of the Widow's minions, who is actually a defector who wants to thwart her plans from within. What do I have to say about his design? Yes, I love it. Flynn's got that goth punk look to him, something or someone that you'd find in a music video for a punk rock or heavy metal song. He's also rocking a studded bracelet, an oversized belt, and an awesome black shirt with the ribcage on the back of it. Flynn, oh man, Flynn just looks good. I think you guys have been well acquainted with the main cast and crew of the game, so with that out of the way, let's talk about the gameplay of Duel Masters Cobalt. As I've mentioned before, the goal of Duel Masters is to destroy all 5 of your opponent's shields and then make one final move against your opponent in order to win the game. It should be noted though that each shield you destroy will actually be a card that goes back to your hand once it's out of the shield zone. In order to summon a creature or cast spells, you need to pay a cost called mana. How do you get mana? By sending cards in your hand to the mana zone. Pretty much any card can go to the mana zone, it doesn't matter what it is, creature, spell, whatever. Not only that, but in order to use cards from any civilization, you must have a card of that respective class in your mana zone. When you summon a creature, they go through a condition known as summoning sickness. It's a condition where the creature cannot attack at all until your next turn. Similarly, every time a creature attacks, they become what's called tapped, meaning that that creature cannot act until your next turn comes around.
Each of the 5 civilizations, fire, water, nature, light, and darkness, calls out to one of you.
Let's talk about the gameplay aspects of each civilization, those being fire, water, nature, light, and darkness. All 5 civilizations play differently and affect how you summon or attack, so let's go over them. Kicking things off with fire, the fire class of cards are more on the aggressive side and focuses on attacking shields, increasing the attack points of creatures, and just wreaking havoc all around. This civilization also has the highest amount of double breakers, aka creatures who can break 2 shields at once. However, due to how aggressive the Fire Civ's playstyle is, not many blocker creatures exist within the deck, and it's recommended that you have light or water in your deck as well. I think that Fire is best suited for players who play aggressively and want to attack their opponent's shields, whilst also eliminating any threats that get in the way. Next, let's simmer down and talk about water. Water is defined by its more defensive nature. Cards within the water deck are fixated on blocker creatures, which are creatures that basically defend your shield from attack. They also fixate on tapping your opponent's creatures, drawing cards, making your opponent discard, and discarding your own. Oh man, there's a lot of cards in this script. So anyway, for reference, think of the blue class of creatures in Magic the Gathering, and good lord. Oh man, I'm having PTSD flashbacks to when I used to play against blue players in high school. Oh man. One thing to keep an eye out on when you're playing with the water deck is that creatures in this class tend to have a somewhat low to moderate attacking power. Be on guard when choosing to go on the offensive. If you favor playing defensively and just love fooling around with your opponent's deck, definitely go for water. Up next is Nature. Nature is about increasing the amount of mana within your mana zone. Cards in the Nature Civilization have pretty moderate attack power and are pretty effective shield and creature attackers. Because of the focus on increasing the amount of mana you have, this makes it way easier and faster to access powerful creature cards. This comes at a cost though. Increasing your mana amount and constantly drawing cards increases your chances of milling your deck and costing you the game. If you're the type of player that wants easy and quick access to your best cards, the Nature Civilization is the way to go. Moving on to my favorite deck in the game is the Light Civilization. The playstyle of Light focuses itself on blocking attacks, tapping your opponent's creatures, attacking your opponent's creatures, and adding shields to your shield zone. Overall, Light strikes a balance between offense and defense. A lot of the blockers in the Light Civilization aren't allowed to attack shields, so it's always handy to have them on the field in case you need to take anyone out. I would highly recommend playing as this civilization if you're the type that wants to stop any and all creatures dead in their tracks. The blockers in this deck, like Dianork, are powerful and boast high attack power than any of the other blockers in the water decks. Not only that, but the light creatures have the most beautiful attack and defeat animations accompanied by some really sweet music. Check this one out right here. And finally, let's talk about Darkness. The playstyle for the Darkness Civilization is tricky, roundabout, and somewhat aggressive. With Darkness, the focus is based around discarding your opponent's hand, sending creatures on the field straight to the graveyard, and destroying your opponent's creatures once you are attacked. With the focus on discarding, Darkness is a somewhat tough opponent to go head-to-head against sometimes. Darkness also has a unique subclass of creatures called Slayers. Slayers are creatures that kill the creature that initiated the attack. If you want a balance of offense and defensive gameplay, and if you want to eliminate threats instantly, the Darkness class is the way to go. And that pretty much wraps it up with the civilizations. One attention to detail about the civilizations I really love is how the abilities possessed by each class is a reflection of either the creatures themselves or the lore behind their world. I really love that a lot, and I highly recommend you guys read up on the lore of the creatures and the civilizations on the Duel Masters wiki. I'll leave a link to it below. Let's move on. Across all civilizations in Duel Masters are different card abilities that affect how the game is played. Some card types are exclusive to one civilization. Let's take a look at each of them. Blockers are creatures whom will defend your shields from being attacked. If this creature has a higher attack power than the one who initiated the battle, they win by default. As you may have guessed, if the creature has lower or equal attack power, either the blocker will be destroyed or both creatures will be destroyed. Up next are some of the biggest, baddest dudes in the game. I'm talking about double breakers. If you see these guys on the battlefield, you are in danger. Double breaker creatures are creatures that not only have a high attack power, but have the ability to destroy 2 shields at once. Please steer clear of these guys. Try using a spell card to destroy them as quickly as you can. If you don't have a spell card, you'd better have a blocker on the field. And if you don't have either of those, then, well...
If they want war, we'll give them war.
Remember earlier when I said that each shield card that's destroyed is returned to your hand? Some cards in the shield zone called shield triggers are either spell cards that get activated or a creature card that gets summoned. The best part? Shield trigger cards cost no mana to activate so long as they were destroyed in the shield zone. For our next ability, let's talk about Power Attackers. Power Attacker is an ability where the attack points on a creature are increased. Be mindful though, as a creature with this ability can only get this boost of power when they're the one attacking. If said creature is tapped and an opposing creature attacks them, the ability will be completely ignored, meaning that these guys can get wiped off the field if you're not careful. And if I remember correctly, this seems to be exclusive to either fire or nature. As a matter of fact, I think both civilizations had them. Let's talk about our final ability, Slayer. No, not that Slayer. So what is Slayer? This ability is one of the most useful abilities in the game, and it makes your opponent think twice about attacking any creature that has this. So what is Slayer? Slayer is an ability where any creature that loses a battle to someone automatically kills the one who initiated the attack. What I like about this ability is that it's fittingly exclusive to Darkness cards. If you feel like you have to destroy a creature that has Slayer on, just use a spell card. Trust me, trying to fight a card with Slayer is just not worth the risk. And that about wraps it up for the gameplay portion of this review. So next I'm going to be talking about music, animations, and graphics. So from here on out you're going to be seeing nothing but animations. So let's get started. When I first played this game at the age of 8 in 2007, one thing that stood out to me was just how well done the animations were despite this being a card game. A lot of the creature animations in Duel Masters Cobalt seem to have had a lot of work and attention to detail put into them, and it shows. What makes the animations stick out is how fluid they are, how crisp the sound design is, and how they fit the creatures and the civilizations they're based off of. The sounds that they make are so crisp and clean, alongside the music that accompanies these monsters really brings them to life. And seeing the animations play out feels rewarding on its own whenever you get to kick off an attack. Let me show you a few of these battle animations to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. What did you think? That's some pretty stellar work done on the animator's part, but that's not all. Next I'm going to show you the 3 defeat animations of the same 3 creatures you just saw. Take a look. The developers at High Voltage Software must have known this, so that's why they actually put in a creature viewer that lets you look at every creature's animations. You can also rotate the monster's model around just to get a good look at them. Oh boy. Oh man. Well, I guess I gotta do it. No point in beating around the bush. Alright, let's talk about the cutscene animations and the graphics.
Go! Fork swing! But full shot counters with an uppercut of flame! And Fork goes down! Genius move by player 2!
In my research for Duel Masters Cobalt, I was unfortunately unable to find any background or behind the scenes trivia on this game's development. All I do know is that it was developed by High Voltage Software, and they've got a number of shovelware titles on their belt. Despite the great amount of effort that was put into the animations for the creatures and the music, good lord are the 3D and anime cutscenes awful. Characters just look terrifying in 3D. The main cast, with the exception of a few, all have eyes the size of a windshield, and the way they stare and move around just creeps me out a little bit. Another thing you'll notice is that characters very rarely walk around. They stand there talking and waving their arms around like a basketball player yelling for his teammate to pass the ball. The anime cutscenes are just... I don't even know how to describe this. With the exception of Knight, characters look and talk like they're puppets. It makes me wonder how much of a budget was given to High Voltage while they were developing this. And I want to say this for the record, I'm not knocking the animators or anything. The animators are talented, they've probably gone on to do bigger and better things. Shout out to the animators. It's just, yeah, oh my god, this just doesn't look good. Anyways, let's move on to something a bit more positive. Originally in the script, I was going to close out the video like normal, say a few lines and tell you where to follow me. But I decided to add this portion of the video because it adds a sense of closure. Duel Masters as a whole did not last long here in America. It premiered in 2004 and then ended in 2006. 2 short whole years. Duel Masters did get a slight revival on the North American TV channel called The Hub. The show was called Kaijudo Rise of the Duel Masters. For the sake of brevity, I'll spare you the details, but all I'll say is that it didn't last long. The show ran from 2012 all the way to 2014, the same length of time the original Duel Masters ran for in America. As a media franchise and a card game, Duel Masters is still alive in Japan, some even saying that its popularity is the equivalent to that of Yu-Gi-Oh! Over there. Despite this, there are still a lot of dedicated fans on this side of the water, 2 of whom I've gotten to interview personally after I joined their Discord server on the Duel Masters wiki. It's wild to me that there are so many dedicated Duel Masters players around the world who are still playing the game to this day. I have a strong admiration for members of the Duel Masters community who are keeping the game alive in spite of its unavailability elsewhere. It's crazy because without Duel Masters Cobalt, I don't think I'd ever be into trading card games today. What's amazing is that Cobalt taught me play strategies that I've utilized in my playstyle when playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering. Not only that, but without Duel Masters Cobalt, I don't think I would have met some of the best friends I've had over the years. George, Jeremiah, if you both are watching this, thank you both for sticking with me over the years, and thank you both for playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic with me at high school back then. You two are awesome. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for the entire video. If you guys like what you saw, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and make sure to click on the notification bell when you sub. Also, if you want to keep up with what's going on with my channel and my projects, make sure to follow me on Twitter and to join my Discord server. And if you want to support the channel, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or my Cash App. Links to all that are in the description below. Thank you all for watching, and I've got more on the way.